All right, guys, with the water warming up, we're going to start talking about a little bit more of fly line fishing. We're seeing more fish up at the surface, so guys are getting bit more on light lines, small hooks, stuff like that. We're catching more of the school size tuna, anywhere from like 20 to 50 pounds. So we're going to start off talking about like rod selection, stuff like that, when you're wanting to fly line a rod. So right here we have the Seeker 8030, right, Nate?
Definitely. This has got to be probably one of my personal favorites. Actually, this was the one I was fishing fly line on my last trip on. Um, just kind of lighter setup. It's rated 20 to 40 pounds. It's an 8 foot rod. We kind of prefer that little bit longer rod when fishing baits. There's a few reasons for that. Let you get your bait away from the boat a little
Yeah.
bit easier.
Yeah, if you're able to cast a bait, being 8 foot versus 7'6", just that 6 inch difference is going to give you a few feet in that cast sometimes, where you're not having to try to throw it as hard, so you won't throw your bait off. And like you're saying, 20 to 40 is the rating on it, so it's nice and light, and you can feel your bait running on there. You can kind of feel when you get picked up or chased, instead of a heavier rod where you don't feel something and you don't get that responsiveness. I'm going to set that one aside there.
Cool.
The next rod we have right here is very, very similar. It's a little bit cheaper, right? The Fishing Syndicate 8 foot, it's still rated in that 20 to 50 pound test.
Definitely. Yeah, it still has kind of that glass feel too, with that really soft tip that'll load up. Very gives you a lot of feel when you're fishing a bait too.
And next we have the Okuma. Tell them a little bit about this one right here.
Yeah, so this is also an 8 foot rod. Again, we kind of prefer that for getting your bait away from the boat. It's also a few added benefits, like say you're fishing the rail, you need to get your rod over the next guy, you're following your line, just makes it a little bit easier. But yeah, similar rating, 20 to 50 pound, would definitely work for your light fly line setups.
Yeah.
And yeah, it'll handle.
Yeah, these ones are a little bit cheaper too. So if you're looking for your first setup, the Seeker's a little bit more on the pricey end. The Fishing Syndicate's more in the middle. This one will save you a few bucks. So if you're looking for your first fly line setup, it's a good choice.
Definitely. And we've caught lots of fish on these. These are actually very similar to our rental setups as far as the rods go. And they're workhorses for the price. We catch a lot of fish.
Okay, now we've touched on rods a little bit. Obviously, you have to have a reel if you're fly lining. So what's been very popular with a lot of guys lately has been level winds. We have the Shimano Trinx and the Daiwa Alexa here for examples. I'm going to hand Nate the Alexa. He's going to tell you a little bit about it.
Okay, so both of these reels are pretty similar in their specs. Most of them will do about 20 to 25 pounds of drag. They hold enough line to do this smaller fish. They'll absolutely hold, 200-300 yards of that 30 to 50 pound braid. It's definitely enough to not get schooled on this schooly sized fish.
Yeah, and the good part about the level winds, they're easier to cast. They'll wind that line in. It's a level wind, so they move it back and forth for you. Some beginning anglers struggle with moving their line in, so that'll help you. Casting out, it's a little bit more user friendly, so if you're learning how to cast a bait, you might like that. The Tranx is a little bit cheaper than the Alexa, correct?
Just depends. So the one I have here in my hand is Alexa T-Wing. These ones are a little bit more expensive, but you can also get the standard Alexa 400, which would be closer in price to one of those guys.
Okay, yeah, so pretty similarly priced. And they hold up pretty well with these schoolies. You hook a bigger fish, sometimes it does get tested, especially these Tranks I've noticed. Fish takes off and runs, and it's a long fight. You'll see deckhands checking drags, maybe tightening it, adjusting it, because it'll loosen up throughout the fight. Now, more of the standard stuff is a star drag, just your conventional reel. We do have quite a few options here. You want to start on the left here, Nate?
Yeah, so we pulled a few offerings from different brands here just to show you a few different options. But of course, this doesn't encompass everything. There's lots of awesome stuff in this range.
Yeah, this is what we had available for the video. So if you guys want to see other reels for future videos, please ask nicely.
Yeah, just let us know. We'll see if we can get them for you. But yeah, this is Shimano stuff. So kind of their lower end line would be this Torium here. Again, I believe about 20 to 25 pounds of drag. Similar here with this Trinidad.
And these are 16s, right?
Yeah, so this is a 16, and this is actually a 16 narrow. And that narrow is really helpful when you're fishing baits because you don't need, mega line capacity.
Right.
I don't need 700-800 yards of line.
Yeah.
I just need something that's comfortable to hold. I can spool it real nice. It fits in my hand, and it'll swim a bait good.
Yeah, I feel like a bait can pull out that narrow reel a little bit easier. That's what I use on my personal bait setup is a 16 narrow. So it's a fun reel to use, and it swims a bait really, really well. Moving down this way, you got our pen that we chose, the Fathom right here. It's a little bit cheaper than the other two, right?
Yeah, kind of somewhere in the middle. I want to say those run about the 300, 350 range. They're definitely workhorses. They're sealed well. They got plenty of drag and they hold lots of line. They're probably a little heavier than some of this other stuff around here, but they will absolutely get the job done.
Okay, and then we got Daiwa's selection right here that we pulled out. I'll hand that one to you if you want to go over it.
Awesome. So yeah, same kind of thing. We kind of have the lower end and the higher end of the Daiwa stuff here. This is a Saltist, with this being a Saltiga. Minor differences in terms of number of bearings, how the inside of the reel is set up, but again, both of them excellent choices.
Yeah, the Saltis, it's a good starter reel. Just over $200 for this thing, and it swims a bait very, very well. You can see the free spool action on it. If you ever test one out, it's going to spin really nicely for you. And then our last two options that we kind of pulled just to show people, this would be Okuma here. I have the Cortez in my hand, which is the lower end model, and Nate has the Tesoro right there. All these brands are very good reels, guys. It's kind of personal preference. There's slight differences in all of them. But for fly line and a bait, specifically 20 to 30 pound tests like we're talking about in this video, all these are good options for you.
Cool. And then, yeah, honestly, a few more notes to touch on when it comes to fishing star drags. A few reasons you might choose a star drag over a level drag when you're fishing this bait fish is they're light. The spools are lighter. The shaft down the center of that spool is lighter. And typically they're smaller. I mean, a lot of the star drags we're fishing are smaller, so it's less line that you're, having that fish pull the weight of, and just less internals of the reels. Likewise, you do also have this cast control knob on any of these star drag reels. That would be true for any of these level wind or otherwise. That's something that you don't have on any lever drag reels, especially the 2-speed stuff. And that makes the learning curve a lot easier for you new guys. It'll keep you from backlashing, and you can always loosen it up as you go and try to get your cast farther, your bait a little farther from the boat.
And for the most part, these are a little bit cheaper in price, especially compared to your 2-speeds. If you're just getting your first setup, the star drag might be the way to go just to save a few bucks.
Definitely. And when it comes to this smaller fish, there's only so hard you're going to be pulling on 30 or 40 pound line or 25 pound line.
Right.
So realistically, do you need that second speed to really crank on that fish? Probably not. You're going to just be easing that thing to the boat.
So people ask about these reels, and this goes for all these reels. They ask what they should spool it up with. In general, if I'm buying a bait stick like this to fly line, I'm going to be using 65 pound braid on basically all these. And you can change out your top shot for mono or fluoro on top of that braid to whatever you'd like. And that's a pretty good base braid to fill your reel with.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of guys will go somewhere around like a 50-50 mix or a 60-40 mix. I think as long as you have like 100 or a couple hundred feet of leader on there, whether it's mono or fluoro, you'll be in good shape. I personally prefer to fish mono with just a short fluoro leader, but there's definitely multiple ways to get it done.
So we talked about backing the reels, and 65 pound braid is kind of what I use for anything I'm going to fly line. And you can go up and down with whatever you want to use for your leader. Now, Nate likes to use a little bit of monofilament, right?
I do, yeah. I feel like when I'm fishing a bait, specifically a live bait, I like to fish at least 100 or 200 feet of mono. It's a little more forgiving. There's a few benefits to it. It's got a little bit of stretch. But also, I think more importantly, your bait just pulls it through the water well. I feel like a lot of times when I'm fishing side by side, you see a guy fishing braid with, say, like a short fluorocarbon leader. A lot of times you see that line kind of sitting on the surface tension of the water. Yeah. It doesn't seem to want to sink. It wants to kind of sit there.
So what's going to happen a lot of times when guys fish just straight braid is they're going to feed line out, and if they're not careful, not feeling their bait, they're going to get in a bad tangle, wind tangle, all that stuff. So mono is a good option for somebody that's just starting out with their first fly line setup. Personally, myself, I go fluorocarbon straight to my braid. We have some 25 pound right here and some 30 pound right here. This is kind of what's been getting hit lately, so that's why we chose these two options. There's plenty of different brands other than Seagar. We grabbed Seagar today, but there's plenty of options out there.
Yeah, you got your Yozuri stuff, P-Line. There's a lot of really phenomenal brands. Daiwa's making good fluorocarbon these days too.
Yeah, Opsin has been coming out, and they've been really popular lately. But anything like that. So when I fish straight fluoro to my braid, what I do is about a 6-foot leader. And that way I can still cast, right? My knot isn't going to get in the top guide. while I'm trying to cast my bait out, because sometimes that'll get stuck as you're casting and your bait will go flying. Okay, so now that we have fluorocarbon tied on as our leader to either mono, in his case, or straight to braid, like I do, you got to get a hook on there, right? And these fish have been kind of picky, we're seeing lately, so we chose some small hooks. These are size 4. This is Gamakatsu right here, owner, size 4, which is a little bit larger than the Gamakatsu, and Blacktail, which is very, very similar to owner. We chose circle hooks, right?
Yeah, so we like this circle hook for tuna fishing, especially when you're fishing light line. I think the biggest benefit of a circle over a J hook is you're usually going to find that hook right in the corner of that fish's mouth. Fishing 80 pound, if you gut hook a smaller fish, it's not a big deal. Fishing 25 pound, you definitely don't want to get sawed off. You want to keep that line out of their teeth. So
Yeah.
circle hook could get them right in the corner.
Yeah, it's a lot easier for somebody that doesn't feel a bait really well to get it in the corner of their mouth. You're fly lining your bait, you have light pressure on your reel, and you feel it speed up. You let them run with it for a second, and then you just nice and easy put it in gear, and you point your rod, and it'll load up in the corner of the mouth. Theoretically, it's supposed to. Now, sometimes it will get set in the gut, even if it's a circle hook. But J hooks that you set the hook are much more likely to get inhaled and set in the gut or somewhere not ideal in the mouth.
Yeah.
So circle hooks are a lot better for guys that are starting out with their first fly line setup.
I would agree with that. Yeah, J hooks tend to just grab wherever they end up. So if you gut hook a fish, they'll just grab wherever they are. Where the circle hook, a lot of times, will actually find its way back out of the stomach and into the corner of the mouth. So pretty user friendly, like Steve said.